This is the call to order for the Friday, May 1st. Happy May Day, everybody. 2026 meeting of the Finance and Government Operations Committee. Good afternoon, welcome. My name is Betty Young. I am the chairperson of the committee and serving alongside co-chair Supervisor Ellenberg. Clerk, will you please call the roll to establish the presence of a quorum?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
I'm here.
And Chairperson Young.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Fantastic. So the first item on the agenda is public comment. This item is reserved for persons who wish to address the committee on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee that is not on this agenda. Members of the public who wish to address the committee on a non-agendized item should request to speak at this time by submitting a request to speak form if you are in chambers or using the raised hand icon of attending virtually. Colin?
We have no requests in the room, but we do have a request. We have 2 requests online.
2 requests online, so 2 minutes each. And close the queue once the first speaker begins speaking.
All right, the next speaker is Parent. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, hello, good afternoon to you all. We recently had a death with baby Jackson. And if you count Ellie Lorenzo, baby Phoenix, and also Jordan Walker, I mean, that's 4 deaths. And it was just maybe a year ago that the San Jose Mercury News editorial board called for the removal of Wendy Kinnear-Rausch and Daniel Little, and also Sean Allen of the NAACP also is calling on their removal. And I don't understand why our county is not removing these people who are having policies that cause children to be placed in harmful situations. I mean, my own children are being sexually molested, and I can't get these 2 people to give my children a screening. I mean, my son, he's already confirmed that my ex-wife was letting somebody rape him, and there's unnecessary bathing with the children, and there was sexual contact between 2 of the children. This all caused my children to be in great distress, and there's never been an investigation of any kind. I mean, I'm just being ignored, and that's just not right. And we should have people in those kind of positions who have a 0 tolerance for child abuse and won't waver when it comes to protecting children. These people are just, they're apathetic. They don't care about the children being abused. And so I really think that it's time now that we remove these people. The calls for the removal have been renewed, and I think it's time now. We should do it. Thank you so much for your time.
Next speaker is Perla Flores. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
And I oversee gender-based violence services for Community Solutions, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Domestic Violence Advocacy Consortium. I want to begin by thanking our supervisors, particularly Supervisor Young and Ellenberg, for your continued support and commitment to gender-based violence survivors. I also appreciate all of the advocacy and support from the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention and the County Exec, particularly Deputy County Exec Casey Halcon. DVAC is actively analyzing the recently released recommended budget to better understand the proposed reductions and their impact on our county's gender-based violence safety net system. And this analysis is complex, particularly because the budget brings together ongoing funding and one-time allocations into a single total. And we want to be thoughtful and precise as we move forward. At a high level, we're seeing both ongoing and one-time funding reductions. And we do appreciate that the budget indicates no service category will be eliminated. However, any funding reduction requires providers to make difficult decisions about prioritizing. And for our system, that translates into real impacts on crisis response, shelter access, advocacy, and ongoing support for survivors and their families. Our commitment is to work in partnership with the county, and we'll continue to review the recommended budget, and we'll return with a thoughtful, data-informed recommendations on how to preserve critical safety net services that provide safety, security, and hope to survivors every day. And again, we thank you for your leadership and your continued partnership and support.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you, Colin. The next item on our agenda is item 3, which is approval of the consent calendar and any changes to the committee agenda. Vice Chair, I turn to you to see if there are any questions, changes, or discussion on this item.
Just one recommendation. Item 7 is the Behavioral Health Facilities Expansion Report, which is on our agenda every month. This month, I'd like to move it to consent. We've recently heard this same data reported at the Board of Supervisors. And I would note for the record in here as well that we are halfway toward our 2030 goal of added inpatient beds.
A good reminder. Great benchmark. And I would also like to move item 10 to the consent calendar with my appreciation to Cheryl and the management audit team for working with our county administration so quickly and also so fruitfully in this case with some really good outcomes for the work plan. On item 13, I'm going to leave it on consent, but I just want to make a comment that while I appreciate the cash balance report indicating the reason for our cash balance dipping into yellow territory, I am concerned that when the proceeds of the 2026 lease revenue bond reimbursement comes in, that green or adequate cash balance indicator, that it's a very narrow margin. So look forward to that report when it comes back again. And with respect to item 15D, so I'm going to leave item 15 on the consent calendar, but with item 15D, I'd like to move approval and forward to the board after review by county council for compliance with any lobbying or related restrictions as required. Steve, is that okay with you? Yeah. Thank you.
That's good.
With those changes, I'm happy to move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
And there are no requests to speak in the room or on Zoom. Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
And Chairperson Moon.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now we move to item 4, which is receive quarterly report from the Office of the County Executive relating to the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds. And great, staff is coming to the table right now.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon. Supervisor Young, Supervisor Allenberg, Consuelo Hernandez, Deputy County Executive. I'm joined by my colleagues, Glenn Williams with the Asset and Economic Development Team, Celine Duarte, the FMC Executive Director. We do have a very short presentation for you, which we are trying to tee up as we give you an update. Might not happen, so if you look at your packet, we wanted to first start, I'm going to hand it over to Celine to provide the first slide presentation, but we wanted to start by giving you an overview of some of the accomplishments that we've achieved last calendar year. Celine?
Good afternoon, Supervisor Yoon and Supervisor Ellenberg. So last year was a great year. We had our annual county fair, which was 5 days long, and we had approximately 40,000 guests that attended over those 5 days. We really looked to change the layout, also to expand entertainment, and we targeted a lot more of the youth to come to the fair and to participate rather than some of the older generations who already have the fair as a family tradition. We also successfully hosted 86 events, including Cirque du Soleil, major concerts, cultural festivals, trade shows, elections, livestock shows, and a whole bunch of other community gatherings. We worked to strengthen community engagement by hosting our free music series and also having a livestock field day and jackpot shows for the youth to really promote youth and agriculture here in the county. We also worked with the county exec's office and Consuelo's team and many other departments to have a big field trip out to ultimately resolve many of the code violations and safety violations that we had on the fairgrounds. So we're really excited about how that did. We've also continued to do a lot of improvements to the fairgrounds. In particular, we cleaned up the old paintball site, which was a nice area that is now nice and usable, and we've actually rented that to a group, LS Power. So if you do look at the financial overview, one of the things that we wanted to point out to you was that the facilities line item you see is way over budget. The reason for that being over budget is because we did not have in our budget a line item to clean up paintball, but that is where that line item comes into play because we invested those funds into cleaning up that area. As we move on to this year and we look at our first quarter profitability, you'll see that we are in the black this year, which is nice. Typically, the beginning of the year can be difficult because our revenue streams a lot from the uses of the property for events, but we have had several events this year and we've had a lot of returning events. So we're excited to report that we are a little over 110,000 in the black currently.
Thank you, Celine. The balance of the presentation is really to give you a summary, and it's in your staff report on the work that we're doing for the master planning process. If you might recall, we presented this as a two-part approach, with the first really focused on activating the core grounds. In the presentation and on your scheduled a list of schedule in the legislative file, we kind of break out the timeline of when we anticipate certain things happening. Right now, we are wrapping up the work of one of our consultants who is preparing a memo that really summarizes the opportunities and the constraints of the parcel. So if you can imagine a 140-acre parcel, 30 or 32 of those acres are what we refer to as the core grounds. They have power, water, everything that they need in order to function. The balance of the parcel lacks the proper utilities, and so we have to be very thoughtful about how we're approaching a potential partner to use that space in a way that honors the history and the direction of this board. And then in your final slide, one of the things that we wanted to mention is the other portion of the activation is the work that we're doing moving forward. Celine mentioned last year we spent a significant amount of time working together to clear code violations that predate Celine's role as executive director and my role as deputy county executive, and we are down to about 1.5. We have one that is finalizing a building permit, and the more exciting one, which the fire department and planning department are ecstatic about, is the demolition of the old arena. The bleachers were red tagged, and they are being demolished, and I believe that they very soon will be done, and that opens up that area for concert venue, bringing in bleachers during the fair. There's just a lot of opportunity. And then the other exciting kind of partnership program that we have is we are looking at piloting a food hub at Gateway Hall. We met on site last week with our facilities and fleet department, food systems, FMC, asset and economic development, and really started to work through the logistics of how we would bring a pilot food hub to the fairgrounds at the Gateway Hall, and really looking at there are a number of opportunities to fill this food desert gap, specifically where the fairgrounds is located, and being able to leverage that. So a lot of work happening in part one, which is to activate the core grounds. We also, on Wednesday, have our opening night or opening day for our new farmers market, and it will be there every Wednesday. And so if you're not busy on Wednesday evening, we will see you there. Celine is working with her team to send out, in addition to the newsletter that if you sign up for, you will receive, she will also be sending all of the board offices a schedule of events so that you can add those to your newsletters, and very kind of select few topics there that we think might be of interest for the board. There is a lot of excitement right now at the fairgrounds. We are also working with Celine and her team in having a really robust community engagement opportunity during the actual fair, which is August 19th, to have folks from different county departments. It's an opportunity for us to engage the public around our ag plan implementation, about the master planning effort. It's an opportunity to connect with the community, and so we will be organizing a set of tables for engagement. There's a lot more that we can talk about all day, but I will stop there, and we are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you, Consuelo. Good to see you, Glenn. Vice Chair, do you have any questions or discussion on this item? I always skip that. So Vice Chair, I'm going to take that back. Can we see if there's any members of the public who want to comment on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Consuelo, for the report. Seeing now the program-specific details that you've been sharing is really particularly helpful. And I want to also acknowledge and appreciate the ongoing operational improvements from FMC leadership. Thank you. Your efforts really are noticed and appreciated. Of course, I was disappointed to see the small net loss for 2025, but I also understand that that one-time remediation work was really the change factor in not seeing a little bit of a positive outcome. In the short term, it's exciting to hear about the activation of the core pieces of the property. I'm really interested in the longer-term vision and how quickly the long-term might begin to take shape when we are going to start talking about bigger, more permanent activation opportunities for revenue generating and for really making this just a first-class facility for the community and beyond.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg, for the question. We are releasing our second request for solicitation. We have a pool of strategic advisors that we've created, and we, just to give you some technical language, we are issuing our secondary solicitation that will actually hire one of those strategic advisors to help us with the second phase. If you might recall, in October when we went to the full board with our vision and idea for our master planning process and learning where I won't call it a failure. I think there were a lot of lessons learned in our prior attempts to work on options for the fairgrounds, taking those lessons learned and actually starting from a market study perspective, what is viable there given the constraints of the parcel, and then eventually going more into your traditional community engagement, master planning, land using. So this is a very truncated process because of it. So we'll be releasing that secondary solicitation in May, and in your schedule we'll have somebody on board before June 30th.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that update, and it does sound familiar now that you are repeating it. Thanks, Consuelo.
And if I may, through the
Please.
chair, apologies because I did breeze through that because of my technical challenges with the equipment today. One thing that I did not mention, but that is in your staff report, and that does weigh heavy on me, and the work that we're trying to do with the FMC board is the governance structure. There is a lot of great work that Celine and I do, that Glenn and Celine work on, that we work on with the staff together, that doesn't happen at the direction of, say, the FMC Board of Directors. It really is, you need this really close tie-in to ensure that anything we're exploring doesn't impact or affect FMC's ability to manage the core grounds and the fair. And right now, that governance structure really creates a challenge for me as the person who's designated with overseeing the agreement, the management agreement that we have with FMC. There is a lot of lost time. There's a lot of lack of consistent vision from what the board has dictated to what you might have from the FMC Board of Directors. So there is a section in your report that speaks to that. The next item on the agenda is to talk about the audit. One of the things that we have flagged in that audit is this governance structure. So the ad hoc committee is meeting. They have come up with a recommendation, but there's still a lot of work to do there. I just share that with you because it does create a lot of extra work that we otherwise wouldn't need to do if we were able to implement the recommendations that came to you 2 years ago in May. It would streamline a lot of the work that we're doing today. So just wanted to call that out. We don't have to have a significant conversation today, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware that that section is also in the staff report. It's not in the formal presentation, but I wanted to call out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your being so forthcoming about the challenges there. It's frustrating to me as well, and I'm very hopeful that the change that we are all seeking and that we know will help us utilize this really valuable asset at a much higher level should come very soon. I'm looking at you, James. What is the timing here?
So I think the reason that Consuelo is highlighting this is this committee, as you'll recall, Supervisor, gave a thumbs up to that administration proposal 2 years ago. We're dependent on the FMC governing board to move forward with a bylaws change to effectuate it. And so we do believe that there should be some urgency in doing that so that we can move some really important work forward as directed by this committee and the whole board to revitalize and initiate the longer-term planning process in a productive way. So right now, it's not an item, there'll be some conforming pieces on our end, but the current rate limiting step is a bylaws change from the FMC governing board.
And they've had that bylaws change before them for 2 years?
It's been in conversation for 2 years. They formed an ad hoc committee maybe 6 months ago.
Yes, about actually more. September last year.
So they formed an ad hoc committee to specifically move that forward in September. But as of yet, the governing board, which has heard some updates, hasn't taken formal action to move the bylaws change forward yet.
So I would look to the chair. The board appoints 5 of the members. And if this is something that is in the interest of the county organization and our residents to move forward, I would think I would certainly have the conversation with our appointee, but the board that we work with should not be a limiting factor in moving work that the board has directed. Does that resonate with you?
Same wavelength.
Okay.
I'm fully supportive of the restructuring of the Fairgrounds Management Corporation, which has been which is something that your team has been working on for quite some time. And so I think it would be worthy for at least the members of this committee to signal that, to convey that to our appointees on the FMC board. When is the next FMC meeting, board meeting, that would have this item on their agenda for a vote for the bylaws change?
They'd have to agendize it, and the agenda for the meeting in May has not been developed just yet. So the earliest it could potentially go back to them is the fourth Wednesday in May.
So it could come in May if we encouraged it.
Correct. If we were able, and I again, the ad hoc committee did present an option of a restructuring, and there was discussion, but there was no vote to advance the conversation. And the next step would be that bylaws amendment that County Executive Williams mentioned.
So yes, I think it would be helpful for the members of this committee to engage in that, to push that forward. We'll do so as well, and I think it is overdue and would be very helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions? So Celine, has it been a full year yet of being our new FMC director, CEO, lady in charge?
Effective June 1, so just about a year.
Yeah. Oh, well, approaching, but thank you. And also the time before you became our official lead on this. You were our interim. And so I just want to say that I've seen more activation from the fairgrounds. It is something, it is a resource and asset in my district. So being able to see it really come alive more so every day. I know that we have a long road ahead of us, and I know you're fully aware of that we're barreling towards the future. So I just want to say thank you for your leadership. It is much appreciated. I am very pleased that one of my events is on your calendar of events. My office is co-sponsoring Citizenship Day on May 16th, and I'm really excited to learn that there's a car show also happening on that day, so it should be a banger. Official record. Yeah. The marketing emails are full of great information. I encourage you to continue to share that with our office. And then beyond any flyers, any collateral that we could just take and include in our newsletters or our social media, feel free to send it our way. Feel free to, I'm going to offer, you could tag my office too on any social media postings that the Fairgrounds does so that we can help promote and repost and reshare it. I feel like Supervisor Ellenberg, would you be open to that as well? Yeah, I say send it to the whole board. They could deny the tag or embrace it fully. Now with the county fair opening on August 19th, after National Night Out on August 4th, I recommend, unless you're already doing this, but partnering with our local neighborhood associations, they're all going to be out in force on National Night Out. That's their big event out of the year. I think any collateral flyers or any type of promotional items that you're already using to promote the county fair, if you brought it to them, I feel like they would be more than happy to receive it. But again, I can't really be speaking on behalf of people who aren't in the room. I'm happy, my office, I'm happy to share the list of our neighborhood associations that we're partnering with for their national night outs. But it's happening all over the city of San Jose. We could also share the contact with you for the city staff person that's in charge of it. I think that'll be a good opportunity to engage our neighbors who love their community and their neighborhoods. And I think they're going to really enjoy the county fair as well.
I agree, and it's nice that it'll be right before the county fair, so we'll be able to get that information out. I have talked to your staff some about how we can collaborate, how we can give some tickets that we did before to different members of the community. So we're going to work on a program to be able to do that.
Great, really excited to hear about that. And I received, at our most recent Viva Calle, I got a chance to speak to some of the organizers. They were just singing your praises, Celine. I guess the next Viva Calle is going to include the Fairgrounds.
Yes.
And it's going to be, what they were really excited about is that the hub is going to be right underneath the arch at the front of the Fairgrounds versus the back lot. So I know it's a small change, but it's got a big impact, and it's going to be, I think I just want to appreciate you for this forward thinking to try to always improve on existing efforts. The last thing I want to say is that, or ask, is that have you been in touch with the Monterey Corridor Business Association?
Yes, I do meet with them on a monthly basis as well.
Fantastic. I only bring that up because I have not met with them on a monthly basis, but I recently had a meet and greet with them, and the whole agenda was just fairgrounds. How can we be part of the future of the fairgrounds? Every single board member had another fairgrounds memory or experience to share with me. So these are folks who are not just looking at the fairgrounds as economic development, but something that is actually reflective of the community. I would highly encourage you to lean into that partnership, which sounds like you are already. Great. I had some questions about the FMC governance restructuring, but I think that the conversation we had just now, thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. Please keep us posted. We don't have to wait until the next quarterly report to keep us updated to that. I would ask that since this vote can happen at any time, depending what the agenda for May or June looks like, please keep our offices apprised. And with that, I'd like to motion to receive the report.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Consuelo, I didn't give you a chance to respond.
No, my apologies, Supervisor. It's been a week.
I did hear you use the term dictating. Okay, so
I wanted to just take an opportunity to thank our internal county departments that have been really supportive of everything that Selena's been trying to do over the last year. Specifically, our planning department, they have been wonderful in meeting with us, pre-vetting opportunities, very one-on-one engagement, offering to review plans in advance, and it really is a change in the relationship there. we're going to need the planning department as we move forward with the redevelopment, our master planning process, and so having them at the table is really critical. And they have just been so wonderful at helping us clear a lot of the violations, helping us understand what they are, environmental health, giving guidance on new users that want to come to the fairgrounds, and of course our food systems managers, really thinking broadly about different ideas. And the fire department, everybody has just been, the sheriff's office, everybody has really been very committed to helping us and reimagine what can happen at the fairgrounds, and just wanted to give them all our collective appreciation for the great partners that they've been. Thank
Very
you.
well said, Consuelo. Thank you so much for adding that. And that just reminds me from your presentation, I'm super excited about the food hub, so excited about the Wednesday farmers market. Again, please don't wait until the next quarterly report to tell us how that's going. Appreciate any emails from you, Celine, giving me a heads up on how things are going and where we could be helpful. Okay. Thank you. I think we have a motion, and did I second already?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg seconded.
Oh,
Yes.
I motioned, and she seconded. Thank you. Thank you, Colin, for keeping us on track.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and then Celine, you're going to stay right where you are, right? Okay. Oh, there's a trade. Okay, well, everyone's getting situated. Item 5 is to receive report from the Internal Audit Division Finance Agency relating to the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds Management Corporation Financial and Operational Review dated April 8th, 2026. Welcome, and please begin whenever you're ready.
Oh, testing. Hi, good afternoon, Chairperson Jung and Supervisor Ellenberg. Happy Friday. As mentioned, my name is Robin Rose. I'm the Internal Audit Manager for the County of Santa Clara. To my left is Hugo Lopez, who's a Supervising Internal Auditor. And to my right is Tatiana Adair. She was the auditor in charge for this engagement. We have a brief presentation that we'd like to share with you. So as we bring that up, we'll share. Perfect. Next slide, please. So for our topic today, we'll just briefly go over why this was important, the objectives and scope of the audit, what we found, and any other important information. So during the Finance and Government Operations Committee back in 2014, there was concern raised to have greater detail and transparency in FMC's operations by the oversight bodies, that's the Board of Supervisors as well as this committee. And given these concerns, we looked at several key areas, which included program profitability, vendor contracts, maintenance and capital improvements, and last, organizational and structure. So next slide, please. Sorry, thank you. We examined FMC's activities over a 7-year period for calendar year 2017 through 2023, focusing on compliance with the management agreement, including accuracy of cost allocation and the completeness and reasonableness of financial information provided to the county. Next slide, please. Sorry, combine that together. And what we found, overall, we found that FMC made efforts in recent years to improve reporting and transparency, specifically through the development and standardization of quarterly reports beginning in 2025. And as mentioned in item number 4 by the management team, that there's also was a leadership transition and operational improvements that were made since the audit period. So I wanted to highlight that FMC management agreed with all of the 10 recommendations that we had for the 7 areas listed on the screen, along with one recommendation that was directed to CEO management related to conflict of interest review. And there are 2 recommendations, one directed to FMC Board of Directors and the other to the County Board of Supervisors that will require a formal response after the issuance of the report. So I'll briefly summarize the key areas. Finding 1, non-disclosure of related party transactions. We identify instances of non-compliance of potential related party relationships involving vendors who received more than $934,000 over the review period. So requiring disclosures or evidence of recusal were not provided. Strengthening the conflict of interest provisions and vendor vetting process is essential to reducing the appearance of favoritism and ensuring compliance with conflict of interest laws. And to highlight some of the management response comments, FMC had terminated relationships with some vendors and as well has updated their purchasing policy. Second, we noted that there was no evidence of competitive bidding or for contractor for contract vendors. FMC did not consistently conduct competitive bidding for professional services, as there were some long-term vendors who were used over the years without a formal process, and which raised concerns about transparency, pricing, and vendor performance evaluated. But since the review period, FMC has updated their processes to align with the audit recommendations. Third, there was a lack of formal vendor contracts for services rendered, where we identified 7 of 32 vendors that were tested did not have a formally executed contract that totaled about $430,000. Since then, FMC management has coordinated with County Council as well as updated their processes to align with the recommendation. Fourth, we noted noncompliance with contractual terms. Specifically, we identified noncompliance with their existing contract terms, including payments for services outside the approved scope, unallowable reimbursements, and expenses recorded in the correct fiscal period. Since then, they have implemented enhanced vendor controls, trained their accounts payable staff, and have updated other processes. Finding 5, FMC executive responsibilities were delegated to the third party, where we noted the executive level responsibilities such as budgeting and strategic planning were delegated to executive vendors. While consultants can support operations, these core responsibilities should remain under FMC leadership to preserve the accountability, continuity, and proper internal controls. Since then, they have hired a deputy executive director and developed a succession plan to help mitigate any consultants that are needed for those key areas. 6, redundant vendor services were identified, where we found services such as marketing and event support totaling about $178,000 were contracted out. And so a centralized contracting process would help reduce overlapping scopes and unnecessary spending. Since then, FMC management has established centralized contract systems and reviewed all their service agreements. And the last finding that we had, that there was a lack of submitting their external auditors' communication, which would be their management letter on internal controls to the county for transparency. And these reports help ensure that county oversight bodies have awareness of their internal control structure. And because the agreement does not currently require it, we recommended that would be reports that are presented to the board. And so we haven't received the management response, but it will be directed to FMC board as they will share it for their consideration after this report is final. Next slide, please. And a few other areas we like to highlight that was also part of, I believe, the Board of Supervisors' concerns. We're looking at similar jurisdictions. So we looked at San Mateo County Exposition and Fair Association, as well as Sonoma County Fairgrounds for benchmarking purposes. And as noted there, hopefully you could be able to see that San Mateo County collected about 1.2 through pre-COVID, about 1.2 million more than Santa Clara. Sonoma collected about 5 million more. And post-COVID, San Mateo County collected about 1 million more, and Sonoma County collected about 6 million more. And I know they have similar services, but we thought it would be an opportunity to maybe collaborate or consider alternative events or revenue streams for FMC. And I believe Celine spoke a lot about what's happening, but we wanted to highlight during that period what we found. And last, another area that we looked at were security expense trends, where we noted that the county's expenses exceeded San Mateo County and Sonoma County between 167,000% as well as 500,000%. So we suggested additional review by FMC is warranted to understand cost drivers and identify efficiencies. So in closing, FMC continues to serve a valuable community, partnering with the county fair, hosted events, and vital community services. These findings highlight the opportunities to strengthen governance, improve transparency, and reinforce controls to ensure public resources are managed effectively and responsibility. And we appreciate the cooperation and collaboration with Consuelo and Celine throughout this audit, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Robin, thank you for the presentation, for this report. Thank you, Hugo and Tatiana, and please also extend my appreciation to the team. This was a very important audit that was really necessary for us to turn a new chapter for our fairgrounds. So I I really appreciate that. This is going to help us move forward with best practices, training, compliance, contracting, and improved business operations. And I'm seeing Consuelo and Celine nodding their head in agreement. I'm going to turn over to my vice chair to see if there's any, wait, hold on, before I do that. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment?
There are no requests to speak.
Not even on the beloved Fairgrounds? No, I'm kidding. That was just a side comment. Don't take me seriously on that one. Vice Chair Ellenberg?
Thank you. It is really to the tremendous credit of the current leadership at FMC that that you had the courage and the professionalism to take the recommendations seriously. The fact that that you're agreeing with them is significant. I think if we are afraid to acknowledge where we have gone wrong, it is impossible to course correct. And I think we have that opportunity to do so right now and are clearly moving in that direction. It is painful to really have to face how many barriers, known and unknown, that were thwarting our success for years, but I appreciate the work of the auditors. I appreciate the work of the current leadership and look forward to moving on to bigger, better, more transparent, more positive, and just doing right. Thank you.
Oh, Celine, did you want to lean in? Or
I just wanted to respond to Susan's comment. It was easy for us to move ahead and agree with most of these because these are things that we had pointed out before they were brought to our attention. So I was glad to see that there were things that they found that we also found as concerns, and we had already started working towards fixing them because, like you said, there was a big web to unweave to get to all of those things, but those were the roots.
Thank you for that, Celine.
And Celine, I also want to acknowledge that I know that you inherited a lot of what has been, actually you've inherited all of what's been detailed in the audit. So really appreciate you taking on the role of fixing things that you didn't have a hand in creating. Which I feel like is the theme of this county. We fix problems we didn't create. But Celine, I wanted to see, I didn't see a response from FMC regarding the review of the security expenses as it was recommended. Do you have any thoughts or plans relating to that recommendation?
Well, I think as I did talk to the audit team, I think looking at security in the way they did is very difficult. We must understand that during this time in particular, we did have the guests in the RV park requiring us to have a gate open 24 hours for access. We still have that gate open 12 hours a day for access. So that is one thing that increases our costs a lot. While they do have satellite racing, they're not open the same amount of days that we were open. And we also have bingo that are open a couple of nights a week. All of those things add into what the costs are. And I'm not sure in that they also took into consideration the amount of monies that we get back from our event promoters when they use the space.
Tell me more about that.
What part?
The taking into account the revenue generated from event planners, how would have that offset the security costs?
So when we have an event, depending upon the size of the event and the amount of security that's needed, that is charged to the promoter. So we obviously pay we have the contract with the security company, so we pay the security company, but we get reimbursed by our promoters for the amount of security that is needed for their events.
So the reimbursement wasn't taken into account when we looked at the security cost measures?
My understanding when they looked at the report, they were just looking at our expenditures and not necessarily any revenue that was generated.
Thank
outside
you.
of that.
Robin, is that a fair characterization of how the data was collected?
Yes, that is correct. Our focus was primarily on the expenditure side.
I see. That's really helpful to know. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I just can't get over that slide that shows our revenues compared to our friends and neighbors at San Mateo and Sonoma. Is that what it was? Yeah. Celine, I'm so sorry to keep on, well, I mean, because you're the lady in charge. Have we thought about, I'm sure you have, please, lessons learned, seeing what they're doing, how their operations are different, or their calendar of events are different, or there's some structural differences between their fairgrounds and our fairgrounds that's having different results?
Well, I think that we use our fairgrounds more than most of them do. And, you know, we use them in multiple ways differently. So even our anchor licensees that we have in the back that drive a lot of revenue, most of our other fairgrounds don't do that. So in order for us to have that, that's also a 7-day-a-week, 12-hour a day posts that must be manned by individuals. So most fairgrounds don't have that, so that eliminates some of the expense. We also have another huge expense, like I noted, for the RV guests. At one point, we had a specific gate for, during the time period of this audit, we had Gate D, which is Monterey, open 24 hours a day for those RV guests, and we had F, which is for our anchor licensees at 12 hours. So we have eliminated that 12 hours from Gate D, so we only have F open during the day, and then we have D open during the evening hours. We've also cut back some of our hours of operation for off-track betting to help drive revenues during times where we didn't have as many patrons coming for off-track betting, so we lowered those days. We've been really cautious as when we're looking at our providers for security, making sure that the rate that they're offering is a rate that is palatable to our promoters, but also that meets the needs that we have. And we're trying to make sure, I think the biggest thing with security is making sure that we have public safety. At all these events, it's something that promoters, you know, are concerned about, but on the flip side, public safety is most concerning. So we have to make sure that we have enough security to make sure we're doing screenings and making sure that the patrons are coming to enjoy our events are as safe as possible so that we don't have any of those instances. So I think there aren't great ways to lower those expenditures, but I think that there is explanations for why we have all of them that could be detailed if needed.
Consuelo, you look like you're leaning in.
Thank you, Supervisor, for the opportunity, and maybe I'll tee Celine up a little bit for another body of work that I know she's doing. When you look at the other fairgrounds, and you look at the conditions of their buildings and the condition of the site in general. So the reason why Celine talks to you about or emphasizes the cleanup work or the clearing of the violations is because there has been a lack of investment in the property, not from a capital improvement perspective, not only through that, but just in terms of cleaning and having a nice functioning space. The FMC team is now investing in that. So when you look at the condition of the buildings, AC is available or not available, the restrooms, like, is it a facility that people want to use? Those have to be some factors or some considerations when you're looking at what happens at those two other fairgrounds. And how do you increase people's interest in utilizing the fairgrounds and preparing the site for other opportunities. So for instance, Celine has a partnership with Visit San Jose, where at some point they can't accommodate a certain visitor in San Jose, they refer the client to the fairgrounds. And that's an opportunity to rent out the hall spaces for those events. If the space can't accommodate a conference, can't accommodate those, it's a missed opportunity. Other fairgrounds, their facilities can accommodate a conference type, or if they want to host a volleyball event, there are some limitations with the current building, the building height. And so those are factors that if you truly wanted to compare what drives revenue in those two other facilities versus our facilities, we're happy to partner with the audit team and come and give you more information. But I think it would also be important to look at the revenue increases over the last 2 years compared to pre-pandemic times, and the FMC team is generating more money today than they did before.
Thank you, Consuelo. Thank you, Celine. I'd like to motion to receive the report and ask for a follow-up report back here to committee in 6 months, because the The other recommendations target a 3 to 6 month timeline for completion. It'd be good to have an update on that and to also continue this very robust conversation about how we drive more revenue towards the fairgrounds and the love and what it takes to get there.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Okay, item 6 is receive report from the Office of the County Executive relating to efforts to improve working conditions at residential care facilities in Santa Clara County. Hi, team, welcome. Whenever you are ready, please introduce yourselves and begin your presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and Vice Chairperson Ellenberg and members of the committee, Maribel Martinez, Division of Equity and Social Justice, out of the Office of the County Executive. I'm joined by the staff of the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, who will introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Jessie Yu with the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Joanne Rodilla from the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement.
We're also joined by our internal partners, Dr. Sam Torres out of the DESJ Research and Evaluation Team, and Ravi Rajenda from the Office of the County Council. Today's report is the third update on actions the county is taking to help improve working conditions at residential care facilities in Santa Clara County. The team has prepared a brief presentation that notes the actions completed and those in progress since the last report in November. And with that, I hand it over to the team.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Young and Supervisor Ellenberg. Happy May Day, or Happy International Workers' Day. Today honors the labor movement's fight for fair working conditions for workers worldwide. So thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our work since November 2025 around activities taken to improve working conditions at residential care facilities, or RCFs, in our county. On April 22nd, 2025, OLC provided the board with recommended actions that were developed through discussions with key stakeholders and focused on 3 main strategies. The first, outreach and education to RCF workers and businesses. Second, learning and convening with RCF community stakeholders. And third, enforcement of unpaid judgments and labor code violations in the RCF industry. In the last 4 months, OLC has made progress on many of the actions from the outreach and education and stakeholder learning and convening strategies. Under the stakeholder learning strategy, on November the 12th last year, OLC hosted a community listening session for RCF owners and operators. Over 30 RCF employers participated and shared about their working conditions at their facilities, the challenges they face in running an RCF, and opportunities for county support. Participants expressed concerns about and interest in attracting and retaining quality staff, improving job-related worker trainings, gaining a better understanding of worker and employer labor rights and responsibilities, and having a more collaborative relationship with state regulators. Also, on February 4th of this year, OLC convened an RCF Advisory Council meeting with presentations from and discussions with the California Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing Division. That's the state agency that licenses and regulates, regularly inspects the RCFs in our county. Advisory Council members and partner offices in DSJ, like the Office of Women's Policy, the Office of Immigrant Relations, and the Office of Disability Affairs. We all gained insight into the state's operation and learned more about how they monitor RCF compliance with state regulations regarding staffing and health and safety of clients. Under the outreach and education strategy, on February 17th of this year, OLC mailed an informational postcard to over 540 RCFs in our county. The postcard information promoted RCF fair labor practices, key worker rights information, and addressed recurring questions from listening sessions that OLC held with workers and employers last year. The postcard was provided in the county's 5 core languages, English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Tagalog, and Chinese, to ensure linguistic accessibility for the diverse worker and employer populations in the RCF industry. Postcard also highlighted resources for workers and employers, including the free attorney staffed advice line for workplace questions and concerns. Additionally, the postcard was posted on OLC's website for posterity and expanded on postcard information, including wage and hour requirements, appropriate deductions for meal and lodging, and policies to ensure compliance with overtime and meal and rest break overtime and break regulations. The website also has links to state resources for workers and employers in the industry, including California Industrial Welfare Commission wage orders and information on worker benefits. On March the 4th, over 35 RCF workers and employers attended an information session that was co-hosted with OLC and the RCF Advisory Council members. The information session focused on helping attendees better understand their rights and responsibilities and learn about best practices for creating safe and compliant workplaces. The session included a presentation from DSJ's research and evaluation team that summarized worker and employer comments shared in the 2025 listening sessions, followed by a wage and hour presentation from an employment attorney, and concluded with question and answer sessions and a free one-on-one legal consultation if they chose to attend. Under the enforcement strategy, in October 2025, the Office of County Counsel filed a civil enforcement action against a home care business alleging widespread wage theft practices targeting workers. The lawsuit alleges the defendants of paying their employees extreme sub-minimum wages, not paying overtime wages, and not providing breaks or accurate wage statements. The county is seeking to recover payment of unpaid wages and overtime owed to employees, civil penalties, and attorney's fees. Moving forward, OLC will continue completing actions provided to the board in April 2025 to improve working conditions at RCFs in our county, focusing on the next steps. Convening with RCF Advisory Council members with presentations and discussions with the state's Labor Commissioner's Office, developing a report summarizing community stakeholder convening findings, outreach education activities, and labor standards best practices for workers and businesses in the RCF industry, and providing our next update by December 2026. With that, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on OLC's work, and happy International Workers' Day. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm going to turn to Colin to see if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on this item.
There are no requests to speak.
All right, we'll head into discussion. I'll turn to Vice Chair Ellenberg to see if there are any questions or discussion.
Just a couple of brief questions. Thank you very much for the report. Are you noticing any upticks that you can tie to the postcard outreach, whether complaints filed or advice line calls?
We're tracking advice line calls, and so we have received, we sent it in February, so it's been a few months now. We've been able to see an uptick in calls in general. Sometimes workers don't give the industry that they work in. We ask them, but sometimes they don't, and so we've seen increase in calls in general.
And is that what kind of, let me ask it in a better way, what kind of benchmarks or metrics are you using to determine if your outreach is successful? What does success mean to you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been encouraged by is through the postcard and through our mailers to RCF facilities, the employers are very eager to engage with us. And so we see that as success.
Interesting.
Whereas if we had sent something and nobody responded, that would be, a definite indicator of the opposite. But we're finding that employers are wanting to engage with us and wanting to speak with us and interested in the information that we're providing.
Interesting, thank you. And thank you for sharing the update on the Advisory Council meeting. Have they produced any formal recommendations?
Not yet. Right now we're meeting for the third time later this month. And we're still kind of in a mode where we're trying to understand the landscape of who is doing what from the state agencies to better understand what our recommendations would be.
Thank you. And is that going to be part of maybe the next phase of the program around direct regulatory advocacy at the state level?
Absolutely. In our discussions with the state, they're very interested in working with us and partnering.
I love that. Once again, Santa Clara County is on the forefront. Thank you very much. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Really, thank you for this report. I'm encouraged by the progress that we've made on this issue. Ravi, I see you from the County Council's office. I know that the last time this was discussed, one of my requests was for OLSC to work closely with the County Council's office to really broaden our lane of advancement of good policy in this area. So thank you for being here. And also really appreciate the litigation that has taken place since then, really holding bad actors accountable. Oftentimes that's the only way for us to actually make those type of gains. I really appreciate the outreach and education materials, the resource and the dialogues that have been informed by the listening sessions and the town hall events. And I'm really excited to learn more about the development of the advisory council and their engagement with this process to improve working conditions at residential care facilities. I understand the members of the advisory council are also the advocates who operate in this space. So I'd like to request that the next time, December 2026, when this report comes back to FGOC, if we could also have more robust conversation around the findings and the recommendations made by the advisory council, and would really, if they're willing, because we've already asked them to do so much, if a member of the advisory council is able to also join you in the presentation, I think it'll be very powerful to hear directly from them how this work has been going with OLSC. We've learned throughout this process that the lack of state oversight over residential care facilities is impacting working conditions locally, on the local level. And can I get a sense of how and in what ways do we partner with IGR, if there's been any development of potential legislation that we would want to relay? And, let me ask this in a different way too. With the lessons learned on the ground level, is there a plan or already a trajectory to share this through IGR or through other channels to inform our state legislatures how to build up better oversight, how to enhance workplace protections in the residential care facility industry?
Right now, the advisory council is still putting, like I said, learning the landscape of who the actors are at the state level and understanding what is currently happening. We haven't spoken with RJ yet, but we're happy to do that moving forward.
Yeah, I see Maribel nodding her head too. So let's signal to IGR that this is gonna, our work will soon merge into similar lanes, the same lane, hopefully soon. That, with so much of the challenges we experience at the local level in terms of workplace violations in this industry is really tied to lacking state oversight or misaligned state oversight. I think it'll be really beneficial to our state delegation to hear from our advisory council, hear from our office in terms of the lessons learned here on the ground to improve those conditions. And IGR would be a great, I think, the appropriate conduit. And since IGR and OLSC, you call it OLSE? I'll start adopting that too. Since OLSE and IGR are both in the Division of Equity and Social Justice, I think this is really where we can demonstrate the intersectionality that DSJ was intended when it was built.
Thank you, Supervisor. Happy to integrate that.
Thank you. And then I'll look forward to hearing more back in future reports.
If I may, Supervisor, just on the point that both of you have made about state oversight, I would note that the case that OLSE mentioned in its legislative file reflects something that we see a lot in the industry, which is just truly fully unlicensed actors who should be licensed under these regimes. So for sure there is a need for additional state oversight, but I think part of what we're seeing in this kind of I think network effect of outreach to workers, including through the postcard, we have seen some uptick in advice line calls, as well as the kind of integration of CCO and OLSC through the Workers' Rights Initiative. We're seeing and have a plan to continue paying attention to this industry, both for those that are regulated and may not be fulfilling the rules that the regulation requires, but also those that are simply flouting the existence of the regulatory structure altogether. And so the focus of CCO in collaboration with OLSC is also kind of focused in part on the issues you're raising.
Thank you, Ravi. That's very encouraging to hear. So I know that the direction was for CCO to work closely with OLSC on this issue, and the plans are to continue being aligned with each other and working in tandem, correct?
That's right, Supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Don't want to lose momentum on good progress. I know that there may be some staffing changes in OLSC in the near future. So please, when that gets finalized, like let us know in our office so that we could know we can contact and follow up with. Okay. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion to receive the report.
Happy to second it.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Item 7. We're already on item 7. All right, receive report from the Facilities and Fleet Department. Oh, no, this item, was this item put on consent? Okay, great. Item 7 was put on consent. So we're moving now to item 8, which is receive report from Santa Clara Valley Healthcare relating to Regional Medical Center. I see staff approaching the desk, so go ahead and begin your presentation whenever you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young, Vice Chairperson Ellenberg, and members of the committee. My name is Nari Singh. I'm the hospital executive at Regional Medical Center, and I'm joined by Vinod Sharma, who's the Chief Financial Officer of the health system. I feel honored and proud to be able to present the first year update of Regional Medical Center after county's acquisition. Next slide, please. Looking at the big picture, every single performance metric that you see on this slide is positive. Access has expanded, demand remains strong, and the services that the county had restored are being actively used by the East San Jose community. If you look at the average daily census, it has grown by 49%. The emergency department visits have grown by 29%. Trauma increased by 48%. Stroke activations, 44%. STEMI, 27%. Inpatient surgeries by 29%. And outpatient surgeries, we actually had 3 outpatient surgeries in the first month, and they have now grown to 91 surgeries. The birth center, last month we had 46 deliveries, and I'm happy to report that we now have about 250 births that have happened at the birth center. Next slide, please. One of the parameters that we were actually pretty surprised with is the average daily census. The speed with which the average daily census grew was unexpected and beyond our imagination. And what this is telling us is that the growth is real and the growth is sustained. But it's also telling us that the pressures on the staff and the pressure on the health system is also high. And so we are working on managing this growth. Next slide, please. So reviewing all the service lines, the birth center, we were expecting about 60 to 70 deliveries per month. We are ranging from 47 to 67 deliveries. This is one of the service lines that is in its early phase of growth. The stroke, STEMI, and trauma, our goal was to maintain the timely access, and we have been able to minimize diversions and keep this service line open. For surgical cases, our goal was to maintain about 275 to 300 cases per month. In the month of March, we actually had 295 cases, and I'm happy to report last month we crossed the 300 mark as the number of cases. In the McKee Clinic, our goal was to expand the specialty services, and since July of last year, we have had about 7,700 plus visits in the McKee Clinic. So overall, the service lines are moving in the right direction. Some are slower than the others. Example, the birth center, which is still in its early phase. Next slide, please. So when a hospital grows at this speed, naturally the question that comes to mind is, are we maintaining the quality of patient care? And the overall answer is yes. When we look at the quality indicators, in the birth center, we have had 0 elective early deliveries before 39 weeks, and the other indicators are also positive. Stroke and STEMI, we measured the door to needle time and door to device time, and both of them we are below the national benchmarks. In trauma, the surgeon response time is an indicator, and we want to maintain that always above 80% of the time. And for major activation, minor activation, and the emergent neurosurgery response has always exceeded the 80% mark. And this is despite the growth that we are seeing in trauma. In the operating room, the same-day cancellations are minimal, less than 4%. The first case on-time starts are more than 95%, which we are extremely proud of. So the takeaway is that the hospital is growing and it's maintaining the quality of patient care. The next slide, please. I'll hand it over to Vinod for the financial review.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Vinod Sharma, CFO, Health System. This slide presents the financial situation of the position as of the last month. February was the month we chose here. The revenues have been higher as indicated by Dr. Singh in terms of the census growth and everything else. But despite having a variance in terms of expenses being over budget, we still had about $15 million of savings. These are the savings compared to the budget. And that accounts for $77 million of county investments to support the operations. On an annual basis, when I look at the budget for the whole year, we have a county investment of $109 million, and we are expected to be within $10 to $15 million of budget at the end of the year if everything goes on as it is. The revenues have been higher and by $52 million or $53 million positive, and that's primarily due to many factors, including higher census and efforts to improve patient throughput and discharge planning and everything that Dr. Singh and his team are doing, but also due to system-wide effort that we have taken on last year or year before in terms of Revenue Guardian, which basically makes sure every service provided, we are able to bill for it. And also in terms of denial management to make sure that the collections are made on almost everything that can be collected. Then also we have implemented CDM revisions last year based on the directive from from Mr. Williams, and that was we improved the charge master to be more in alliance with or compared to what other peer hospitals are charging. We also did a restructure of the rates for the OR that also improved revenues. In addition, we are providing coding training and CDM, the clinical documentation improvement training, which is also helping in terms of revenue growth. Expenses, yes, we have a $38 million, as you see the net variance there. That's primarily because the demand was higher than was expected. As a result, we had to use more resources. But now that 1 year is over, we are working with the hospital there to make sure that we control overtime, extra help, premium pays, and also make sure that the staffing is comparable to the census or the volume for the day by shift, by unit by shift. And county investment, the goal is to stay within the county investment, and we've been successful in doing so. With that, let me also thank Amy Donahue, who was helpful in presenting these slides to you and prepared these slides at a very short period of time. Thank you.
James, I see your light on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Nari and the whole team at Regional. It's really extraordinary just how well Regional is doing operationally in its first year under county ownership. When we were looking at what was going on at Regional, meeting with HCA, that parking lot was empty. And you go there now and you'll spend 10, 15 minutes circling to find a parking spot. And what that represents in very tangible and real terms is access and healthcare being delivered in one of the most needy parts of our community. Healthcare access and delivery that was always needed. It was always necessary, but people in the community didn't trust the prior ownership to deliver that service. And under the county's ownership, the patients are there. They're receiving the care that they need. They're receiving care with excellence. And we're very excited about the long-term future at Regional. We're very excited about the incredible work that's being done there. And I have to say also the smiles of the staff there who have joined our county workforce and are delivering that compassionate and excellent care, really bring warmth to my heart when I get to visit, and just huge credit to the team there and to our staff there for meeting this incredibly important community service need, including the restoration of many essential life-saving service lines that are now accessible, available, and every day providing that service in our community.
Thank you, James. Colin, are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Thank you, Colin. I'll turn to Vice Chair Ellenberg for any questions or discussion.
Thank you for the report. This really is just an impressive ramping up. I'm curious if you have any insight about why RMC in particular was able to see such dramatic success so quickly in comparison with O'Connor and St. Louis. And of course, I'm just talking about those first 10 or 11 months before we went into a pandemic.
I think one positive factor for us is that we are not facing COVID.
Well, but in April of 2019, we weren't facing COVID. So do you think, I know we also had other challenges in ramping up the employment, so presumably we learned a good number of lessons. Is it fair to ask, absent COVID, do you think those hospitals would have surged as quickly? And do you now see opportunities for O'Connor and St. Louis to accelerate in the way that Regional has?
So one of the things was the location. Within 5 miles of the area was a big size of people who were hungry for those services. And with HCA not performing them or stopping those services, it basically, people were eagerly waiting.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that about St. Louis.
Yes,
too.
which has seen significant increase in volume under county ownership. Regional is geographically situated close to most Medi-Cal beneficiaries in our broader county. So that was one of the reasons it also made a lot of sense for it to be under county ownership. But we have seen significant increases, and indeed did shortly after county ownership down in Gilroy. That's a similar area where there was incredible need. Right. That emergency department filled very quickly, and the patient census there rose very quickly as well. O'Connor is a little bit more complex of a story, in part because it's also located very close geographically to Santa Clara Valley Medical Center.
Right.
And so we haven't seen quite the same volume increases, but we should be pretty clear, all 4 of our hospitals are busy. They are full. And this was one of the things that we sometimes got questions about while people were discussing Measure A. All 4 hospitals, including O'Connor, are very busy. We have very busy emergency departments at all 4 hospitals. We have limited staffed bed capacity at all 4 hospitals, and we have really high demand for critical services at all 4 hospitals. And so if we were in a different fiscal environment, we would be absolutely wanting to significantly expand those services to meet that demand, because it's absolutely clear that there's increased demand, and access to healthcare, whether it's primary care, specialty care, access to healthcare is a challenge across our community. We still remain actually one of the broader communities in the state with a lower number of, for example, emergency room beds per capita. And we will need to continue to try to find ways as much as we can in this fiscal environment to expand services wherever possible, because the need in the community is there.
Thanks. I appreciate the perspective. And again, really am just impressed and delighted by what I'm seeing at Regional. Thank you.
Thank you, Nari and Vinod. And Emmy, was that the name?
Amy.
Yeah, Amy, for preparing the PowerPoint presentation, from what I hear on very short notice. But I just want to appreciate you and also recognize that similar information I know goes to the Health and Hospital Committee in a much more fulsome report. But I did want to have the opportunity for FGOC to hear about Regional Medical Center's operational growth and progress. I think it's the same question I had, Supervisor Ellenberg, like how do we take the lessons learned here from what looks like a very successful transition and very significant ramping up in a short amount of time? How do we take that so that we can share that throughout our health system so that we can continue becoming just ever evolving in that space? So I'd love your thoughts on that as we continue this conversation and we continue to monitor the progress. And as I continue to progress in my healthcare acumen, I do have some questions that I'm hoping we could go over today. So are there growth goals for each of the service lines that you have included in your report? I'm really encouraged to see the increase over the year. Have we gotten to the point of creating or setting benchmarks for ourselves yet? And if so, what is the plan to get there?
Madam Chair, in the presentation, yes, we do have goals for each of the service lines. And other than the birth center, all of our other service lines are meeting or exceeding their goals. For the birth center, we were expecting about 600 births by now, and we have not reached there. We will probably reach around 450 by the end of the fiscal year. And so in our assessment, the birth center is in its early phase of growth. It will take us a few more months to ramp the entire service up. But we are pretty confident that by the end of the next fiscal year, we will be able to meet our targets.
Well, those are bold projections, so I'm excited to see that. And I also learned, and Vice Chair, I don't know if I'm going to share something that I come to visit RMC pretty regularly. It's right around the corner from me. They always have a really great cafeteria menu. There was like, I love to see the babies. I love to see the babies. And there was, on one of my most recent visits, there was an emergency delivery. And the baby is the baby still in our NICU?
She has been successfully graduated to go home.
Oh, that's really wonderful to hear. But the mom was rushed to our hospital via emergency department. That's at her medical home. And it turned out that this family living in Santa Clara actually was closer to Regional Medical Center than any other hospital, than their home hospital. So I just can't, speak enough about just how happy I am that Regional Medical Center exists, and I think front and center, it serves a very heavily Medi-Cal population, but its positioning is also so convenient to so many communities beyond the Medi-Cal population as well, beyond East Side, beyond our immediate neighborhoods there. And I'm so glad that they were there to receive the mom and baby, and that she has graduated. So is it because our labor and delivery services opened up later after Regional Medical Center went live? Is that why it has not, the births have not met our projections?
I think there are two reasons, Madam Chair. One is the timing of it, that when the peak birth volume happens within the year. And then also the overall birth rate in the country and in the state is on the decline.
Oh,
And so we are facing the same decline in Santa Clara County as well.
we're facing the same decline that's happening nationally, right? But you feel confident that we'll still meet our projections?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing about that and learning more about that. I wanted to ask about the return of emergency heart and stroke services to Regional Medical Center. In addition to treating these patients in the moment, do we know the overall health outcomes or the long-term health outcomes for these patients?
For which particular?
For our emergency heart care and stroke services.
So for both STEMI and stroke, the outcomes that we measure is a process measure, which is the time the patient hits the door to the time the patient for stroke, it's we call the needle, the door to needle time. And then for STEMI, it's the door to device time. And both of those, we are able to meet the national benchmarks. Where we struggle is there is some variability between both of these procedures. And anytime where we see a variation, we review the case in detail, learn from it, and then make improvements within our systems.
Thank you, Nari. I was going to ask about the budget trend for payroll and services. Vinod, you've explained that already. If there's anything else you want to add, I think it'd be helpful to hear.
No, go ahead, sir.
Along with the labor management, one of the things we are starting to focus on is on the supply chain and the supply management. We are improving standardization, and then we are hoping that will help us reduce the cost of our supplies, and that will help the overall labor and supply budget.
I appreciate that. Vinod, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, there is also on a regular basis, routine basis, productivity reports are looked at. And as the volume fluctuates, Nari Singh and his team have the capacity to adjust the labor accordingly, within limits, of course. And the focus now that 1 year is over is also to move away from premium pay to see how we can move more towards regular payroll, so at least the overall costs are low. And system-wide, as Dr. Singh mentioned about standardization, we are looking at all the 4 hospitals. The procurement practices should be same, the contracting should be similar, and inventory management and other things. Any penny we can save, because we are facing major budget challenges and everything. And then I think all 4 hospitals are working as one team in terms of helping finance get to the point where we can manage within our resources.
Thank you. We certainly have a hard road ahead of us, and I do appreciate the very thoughtful approach. Is the McKee Clinic fully online?
Yes, it is fully online now.
I remember that there were previous tenants whose leases have expired and they're out now?
No, on the first floor, there are tenants whose lease is going to expire sometime in this calendar year. So those are still not in our possession yet. But the second floor, the clinic is active.
The second floor clinic is completely online. First floor, we're still waiting for some leases to end.
Correct.
And then there is a plan to install more services there?
That is correct.
Yeah. Is it going to be more of the existing service that's already at Mickey Clinic, or is there any preview that you can give us today?
We are planning some urgent care and then some surgical services.
That's really exciting to hear. Please keep my office apprised of that development whenever we're ready to claim ownership of the complete building with all of our services. I think that's an opportunity to signal to our community again that we're not just repairing or rebuilding, but we're actually adding to services that Eastside hasn't had before.
Definitely will do, Madam Chair.
Yeah, well, and the emergency department expansion, could you speak to the progress of that? Where are we at with that? I know I keep on trying to sneak my head like behind the construction zone, and I keep on getting shooed out. But please tell me what's happening there.
The construction has now gotten to the next phase where we have regular team meetings. We are hoping that by end of August, we will be able to fully stock and put supplies in that area. And hopefully early September or late September, start seeing some patients in the newer section of the emergency room. The plan would be to bring the entire area online in early 2027.
Early 2027. And what is the capacity that we're going to be increasing with the new expansion?
20 additional beds.
20 additional beds in addition to, what is the current?
37.
37 and then an additional 20. Will be do the plans also include an expansion of the waiting room?
Not yet. So the waiting room will take another at least a year.
Okay, well, with that many additional beds, we should also have additional waiting space.
It's an active construction project.
Yeah, thank you, James. Well, thank you, Nari, and team for this presentation and for this progress report. James, I'm going to turn to you because you brought up something that kind of piqued my interest a while ago, that we are now, people are circling 10 to 15 minutes to find parking at Regional. Does Regional have one of those valet stations that our other hospitals have?
Not yet.
Not right now. Yeah.
I heard not yet. I heard not right now. Okay, we'll look to the future to see how that plays out. Again, thank you so much for the work here. It's been nothing short of extraordinary. James, I know that you've had a big hand in shaping how this progress has been, how it has developed. Now, really curious to know, how does Regional Medical Center fit into the overall, or how does it contribute to the financial health of the Santa Clara Valley healthcare system?
It's a pivotal piece of our overall fiscal strategy. We now operating 4 hospitals, 2 trauma centers, 15 clinics. We are shifting, and it's a culture shift. And culture shifts, of course, take time, they take energy and effort, but we're shifting into a modality that we call, thinking about our system as one enterprise, one holistic organization. We talk a lot. You've probably heard a lot of conversation about holistic medicine. We have a philosophy about thinking about our healthcare delivery system as one seamless organization. And that means bringing together the culture, the policies, the practices, including the deployment of our resources, the most important of which is our own staff, in a way that's more seamless across that system, and reorganizing how we think about the services that we deliver from a service line perspective. And that means making sure that we're providing the right services in the right locations. It means integrating the types of services that we provide across facilities and not having a siloed mentality. So one of the things I'm very excited about structurally in that regard is that beginning July 1, all of our hospital facilities, the entire SCVH system will be in one fund. So that means from a fiscal standpoint, we'll be organized as one collective unit. and not separated on a facility-by-facility basis. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes. That's a good example of something that's more technical, and behind the scenes, a lot of work that's happening up front in how services are organized. But regional is a very critical piece of that, and as we discussed earlier, is in the right location for the delivery of a number of very essential services.
Yeah, thank you, James. Thank you for this presentation. Nari, I'm going to reach out and check with James to see when would be an appropriate time, because there's just so much development and progress happening and construction happening that I would like for a progress report to be brought back to FGOC in the future. But James, I'll work with you and Nari to see what the best timing for that is, for a robust update to the clinic space there, to the ED expansion, to checking in on our benchmarks for service lines, especially with our labor delivery unit. Something that I just want to signal to you for the long horizon is that we have a massive geographical footprint at Regional Medical Center, the East Valley Clinic across the street. I'm going to look to future reports to this committee in terms of how do we holistically think about that space in with the EVC clinic across the way, and then Regional Medical Center there. Then we have also our clinic behind on the backside of on the other side where opposite of the McKee Clinic. How are we approaching this footprint as one system? Well, with that, I'll make a motion to receive the report. With the future report, TBD, time TBD.
Second. Happy to second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Item 9, I believe, is the last item on our agenda today. Is that right? Colin's nodding. Okay. It is a receive report from the Employee Services Agency relating to ESA transformation efforts. Welcome, team. As you get settled in, please proceed with your presentation when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Jung and Vice Chairperson Ellenberg. I'm David Hebner, Director of the Employee Services Agency, and thrilled to be here today with my colleagues, Anita Asher and Michelle Kwan, who lead our Recruitment and Classification Department, and Dimitri Triantis, who runs our Finance and Admin division, including our analytics team. We're really excited to have a chance to present today, and if we can pull up the slides, we have a few slides that just provide an overview of where we're at in our transformation efforts, and we're excited to have a chance to present. So as we think about our transformation efforts, I'll provide the tee up as the slides come up. We think of this all within our larger North Star, that as an agency, we will be successful if we're able to deliver an excellent employee experience to everyone from recruitment through retirement. And that's really the driving force of all of our work. But we need to do that at every stage of the employee life cycle. And we are pulling on 4 key threads as we think about the transformation work. One is that we need to be putting more tools into the hands of our employees through self-service technology and tools. 2, we need to be thinking about how we can get more operationally efficient as we go through this process. There are key elements where we need to reimagine what the employee experience can be, and we need to be doing this through a data-driven lens. So as we move to the next slide, what we're hoping to do over the course of these sessions with FGOC is every 2 months, report on a key part of the employee experience. And we've structured things around the employee experience. And today our focus is going to be on what we call the attract and recruit phase of the employee experience. But in subsequent sessions, we'd focus on hiring and onboarding, then how do we develop our workforce, how do we engage with our workforce, and how do we support and retain. And that really building it around the employee experience rather than how we're structured is how we hope that we can be leaning into really ensuring that we're providing that excellent experience at every step of the way. So as we think about attracting and recruiting, there are a couple metrics that we're going to focus on today. One of the ones that when we think about the effectiveness of how we're going about attracting people to apply to jobs with the county is thinking about not just the number of applications, but the average number of applications per recruitment. And the reason you want to do it this way is as we think about the cycle we're in right now, where we might be doing less hiring, right? We might be seeing a decrease in applications, which we did in 2025, but we actually saw an increase in the number of average number of applications per recruitment. We're now at 63.4 number of applications per recruitment, which is a 50% increase from 2020. And so this is one of the ways that we think about the effectiveness of our outreach efforts. And as we think about what is driving this and why we are getting this type of increase, a lot of that has been done through both in-person and digital outreach. So the team, led by Anita and Michelle, has been doing more in-person outreach. We've had 58 events in 2025 that led to 1,100 direct connections with people. But then also online, we established over 200,000 connections with people on LinkedIn. And this is part of doing a lot more proactive recruitment, which aligns with a lot more modern ways of thinking about recruitment, where you're actually more proactively going out to the community. And we've seen that increase in average number of applications per recruitment as a translation of that. One other thing I want to highlight on this slide is as we think about our recruitment strategies, we need to be thinking about the mix of external versus internal hires. We want to be ensuring that we are growing our current workforce. And so as we look at our hires in 2025, over 40% were actually transfers or promotions. And we think this is a healthy mix of bringing in new blood to the organization while at the same time helping people grow within the organization and providing them with those opportunities. If we go to the next slide, as we think at the second metric that we often look like, now that we know that we've been able to successfully attract people, then it's thinking about what's the process that we're putting them into. And so one of the metrics that we're really focused on here is around time to hire. And as we think about time to hire, we break it down into two key parts of the process. The first part of the process is going from getting a requisition approved to then giving the referral, which is when we've gone through the process of an exam process, we've created an eligible list, and now we're referring candidates to a department. That's the first stage of the process, which is really about building out that pool of people for a department to review. The second stage of the process is going from the referral to the actual start date, which is really the process that's run by the department. As we think about that first part of the process to create that eligible list and get the referral to departments, it takes about 87 days. As we think about the second step of going from referral to start date, it takes about 45 days. When we then think about, when people ask us, well, how long does the whole process take? Because you can use one eligible list to fill multiple positions, we can actually get real benefit from that first step of the process because we can fill many positions. So if we actually look at the average time that it takes to fill a position, because you can fill many positions with one eligible list, it's about 99 days. And this is the first time in 5 years that we've actually had a time to hire under 100 days, which is one of the metrics that we've been looking at. So that's a little bit more on the second metric that we look like around time to hire. The other update that we wanted to be sure to get you when thinking about the attract and recruit is how do we go about ensuring that we have the right jobs, right? And that we've talked about hiring for them, but we actually also need to make sure that we have the right jobs. And this is done through the classification and compensation work. So over the course of the year, there are different ways in which we are being asked to go look to see whether we have the right job design. So we have job spec revisions that get asked for, salary surveys, compaction reviews, and then class studies. These are all different ways in which we're being asked to go look at our job design either on an individual basis or on a class basis. And one of the big things we're leaning into here is using new technology to think about classification and compensation work. So we've been piloting a new tool called Holly that allows us to do a few things. In addition to giving us data on how comparing jurisdictions might put together salary information or design their jobs, it also allows us to think about how inclusive our job classifications are. Are there ways that we could improve that? And so we're leaning into this new technology to really rethink the way that we're going about class and comp work, and we really think that that will expedite things, but also be a stress test for how we're ensuring that they remain modern and inclusive. So in conclusion, today's really focused on the attract and recruit side of the equation of how we go about ensuring that we're getting great people into the county. We think that we've really been modernizing the way that we're tapping people on the shoulder and doing our outreach and thinking about class and comp work in a new modern way. We know that as we look out to the future, we're going to have to be thinking about how do we remain competitive in a market where there's a lot of competition for talent, especially for some of our hard-to-fill classifications. So we're going to need to make sure that we're being dynamic and reacting to what's happening out in the market. But we think we're building the tools and the capacity to do that. And we're excited to engage in a discussion today for any questions you have, and then in subsequent sessions, talk about the other parts of the employee life cycle.
Thank you, David. I'm going to turn to Colin. Are there any members of the public who wishes to comment on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Thank you, Colin. I will turn to Vice Chair for any questions and discussion.
I don't have questions right now. I really appreciate the report and might like to have a follow-up, just general conversation with you, David. Thank you.
Love that.
Yeah, I think same. It's a very meaty report, and I'm probably going to have an offline conversation just to follow up some more. But one thing I wanted to, first time in 5 years that we have a less than 100-day period, you said, from acquisition or requisition to start date. Is that what it was?
Correct.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I'm so sorry. Congratulations, but it still does feel like an extended timeline to me. And I know that you've laid out a path here of requisition approval to referral issued to department. And then the next tranche is referral to start date. What I really am interested in is the user experience, the experience of the applicant. So from the time that they submit their application, or even from the time the application window closes to the time that they start their job, what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, so it's going to vary, but that's where we are looking at those two pieces together. So for the applicant who's coming in, right, they need to then take an exam and get on to an eligible list. They wouldn't have to deal with the stage of the process at the beginning of the requisition. So I think we can measure that on the applicant level. So we can provide that data as a follow-up on the applicant, because here we're focusing more on how it's feeling to the hiring manager, if you will. But we can definitely get you that data on the applicant level.
Would be really interested in that. And what you just said in terms of understanding the experience from the hiring manager, really understanding the experience from the applicant itself, I think would really help inform how we can support you with our recommendations and discussion. I'm just looking at the referral to start date, the time between the date the department receives a candidate names to interview and the date a selected candidate starts in the position, 44.9 days. I'm really interested, unless you tell me there's a reason why it shouldn't be the case, of shortening that time as much as possible. Of course, we always want to be thorough with our vetting process, but wherever there is opportunity to shorten that time, and I know that you have a lot of mention of AI tools and streamlining things and having self-service, and so I think that's in the right direction. And what I've heard consistent from my conversations with you and as the goals of this organization is to be the employer of choice, recruiter of the best talent, right? For great talent, 44.9 days may be a time that's too long, that we're going to be competing with other potential employers for really great people to join our team here. So I'm really interested, as we continue this conversation, to know how, through this transformation process, how are we shortening those times even further, really pivoting our framing to see through the experience of the applicant, how they hear about us, how confident that they feel navigating our website to apply for the job, what was it like submitting. I've heard all types of feedback over the years. It's been a while since I've gone through our ESA site to apply for a job, so I can't speak with direct experience, but in the early parts of my career, there was a lot of reflections and a lot of feedback from folks saying that it was a cumbersome process and that it could have been streamlined more. So in future reports, really, or any follow-up from this meeting today, David, any indication about how that has been changed or re-envisioned, or any plans to streamline that initial engagement process?
Yeah, one thing I'll just mention on that 44-day time frame, one of the projects that we've talked about teeing up for ESA over the coming quarters and years is whether we want to move to a more centralized, standardized interview process. That 44 days is made up really of interviews that are being carried out at the department level. And currently in the county, we have a more decentralized model where each department can sort of run that interview process the way they want. There are other models out there where centrally we would, both from how interviews are structured, but then also providing question banks to try to expedite the process, providing more technology to make it easier to run, especially remote interviews, to take notes, so on and so forth, that there are opportunities, I think, through that more structured, centralized interviewing that you could eat into that time and make it more predictable. That's a larger initiative insofar as getting everyone aligned around that, but I do think there's opportunities there to expedite that part of the process.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. And just another reflection, when I talk about the applicant experience, whether they end up with a job with us or not, I really want them to leave here saying that we are a professional operation, that they were treated with respect, that timing was punctual, and that we followed up whenever we said we would.
No, that's a great point. One of the things I often talk about tied to that, if you think of the application volume being over 100,000 people, and then our hiring volume being 4,000, of which 40% are internal, you're only bringing in about 2,000 people from the outside, which means that you have 90,000 people that had this interaction with you as an organization, with you as an entity, and that's actually a huge number of people, and you want to leave a good taste in their mouth, whether it's they're going to apply in the future or they're going to be telling other people to. So I think we have to think about, the experience of those people and not only the ones that end up getting hired. On that note, ESA, I think, used to send out a survey to applicants. We've been thinking about how to redesign that to make sure we're capturing feedback on key points of the process, and that's something that we're looking to do to better understand the applicant experience.
I think we should do that. Was the application process easy? Was the website easy to navigate? How did you hear about these job openings? Was the job description clear? I think that would be really helpful to us. And, I really appreciate your point about the overwhelming majority of people the applicants who don't end up being placed with us in that immediate moment. But even their experiences in going through the process and engaging with us, the touches that we make, it also will continue to add to our reputation as being an employer of choice, that we have the highest standards. And you really can't ask for high standards unless you yourself also display high standards. I'm going to get really kind of minute now. There was once upon a time when I was an applicant to this county, multiple times over, because I applied for various jobs over the years, when I would get this magical call that's from an unknown number that said, you have been, you're going to get an interview, right? You have been selected to move forward in this process. You have 3 days to call this number back. And if we don't hear from you in 3 days, you're off the list. We're going to take that as you not wanting this job. Sometimes that call comes on a Friday, so then I'm trying to figure out, is it 3 business days, 3 calendar days? Sometimes there's no instructions. I mean, sometimes I wondered, can I leave a voicemail? Would that count as a call? Are we still doing this very analog, personal touch process to get someone scheduled for an interview, or has that now transitioned to the self-service model?
That has not transitioned to the self-service. I'll let Anita.
And am I accurate in describing that process? That's only my experience from a few years ago.
The notices do ask the candidate to respond to the department. Many departments are doing the proactive outreach to all the candidates that are referred, so they will call and ask to schedule the interview with them directly, so the candidate doesn't have to do that response to the email.
So this is a part of the process where we have kind of a handoff happening between ESA and the department. So the interview part of the process, so that 44.9 days part of the process, is all controlled at the department level, not by ESA. And so what happens there is, what's supposed to happen is actually a two-way touch point, which is the applicant is told that they've been sent to the department, and the department is given the list of folks, and the department is told to immediately schedule those interviews and reach out to the applicants. So where it's working properly, the applicant should know that they've been forwarded, and they should be receiving a call from the department to schedule the interview. And where a department is organized, they should already have their interview panel selected. They should have their interview dates reserved. They should have the interviews lined up. so that they're immediately able to get people in the door in those interviews. What sometimes unfortunately happens is the department hasn't begun its planning process for how they're going to interview names that are referred until after they get the names. That contributes to that bucket of delay, because if they then take several weeks to schedule an interview and then they do the interviews and only then they do the reference checks and then they make the offers and then of course it takes several weeks for the person to actually start, you can easily see why it's going to take 44 or more days between the time ESA gives them names and the person actually starts. So that is one of the things where David was referencing, do we want to move to a more centralized model? And there's pros and cons. Departments will be very unhappy if we move to a centralized model for interviews, but we will have central control to bring these times down. So there's serious trade-offs there. But that's exactly the point at which things just move over to full control really being in the department's hands.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. Megan, you're leaning in.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor. I just wanted to also mention that when we actually bring people on board, we can only bring them on at the beginning of a pay period. And so that only happens once every 2 weeks. So again, if you sort of just, I've been in the situation where you do make the offer, but you have to wait 2 more weeks to hire them. And a lot of applicants also, when you're hiring, they have to give notice to their prior employer. And so 2 weeks is also kind of the standard that way. So I feel like that's almost three weeks kind of on the back end. That's not really about us not showing interest, but just really trying to respect the applicant winding down their current job and then having a positive onboarding experience here at the county. And so that when they come on board, we can also be ready for them with their TSS equipment and their badge and all the things that really contribute to them having a good start as a county employee, that just requires some lead time in terms of knowing who that person is going to be before they show up on that day. So that it really does take that time at the end.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, and thank you, James. What I'm hearing is that we are very clear in what extends this timeline and the challenges. So I'm also expecting that we'll be very clear too in the potential solutions to shortening this timeline. I know that I recognize that we want to respect the applicants also. I mean, that part of the timeline, that belongs to the applicant. And that I have no opinion towards, right? What the portions of the timeline, portions process that's within our control, I'd like to see us shortening that, enhancing the user experience, making sure that people leave this process, whether they get hired or not, that they leave with a healthy respect for the county, that we are adhering to our highest values, and that David, and I know that we're going to see each other every 2 months, and this is the beginning of a new reporting cadence to really take on this really big, robust, ambitious goal, which I know we can do. I have faith in it. But it's going to require a lot of conversation, a lot of follow-up. My office will follow with some more questions and discussion. Something that I recommend is that where there is a transition from ESA to the department, signaling or identifying or marking that in your timelines and reports so that we have a better understanding of where these where transition of responsibilities happen and occur.
Supervisor Young, I'm afraid I'm going to disrupt quorum, which means the meeting will have to end. So do
Vice
you
Chair,
want to vote on this item?
Yeah, that was my last question, and we'll go ahead but David, did you catch that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, sorry, I lied, second to last. Future reports, please include pros and cons discussion about decentralization versus centralization of this process. With that, I make a motion to receive the report.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg. Chairperson Young.
Yes,
Motion carries.
and this meeting is adjourned before we lose quorum.